So, one of the things that have you, as you've been doing yoga, some of you longer and for a longer period of time, I imagine, but who knows? Um, have you noticed that yoga and a yoga practice, yoga doesn't always make you feel better all the time? You ever notice that? Or are
Hmm.
you still like on the honeymoon part of it? Because the honeymoon part of it is great. Right? It's awesome. And when I say feel bad, I don't mean like, oh, you work too hard and you're sore. That could be it. But and a lot of people come to yoga for wanting to feel better, which is a great reason to start. It's not usually a good enough reason to stick, right? It ends up being, I don't know if it's more complicated than that or if it's just um bigger than that. So one of the things in actually the book that sits on my computer that I forgot about this line, but one of the reasons why you do yoga is not to always quote bring you towards the light, but yoga um brings you towards or opens you towards a wider spectrum of truth. Kind of like more. And the truth is When's this kind of hard for a yogi, I think. I take pretty seriously the commitment to truthfulness, and I think of truthfulness is much deeper than just whether you tell the truth or not, right? It's that, it's got both light and dark in it, right? That's just part of what it does. It's a wider spectrum. It opens you up to more, right? And how you process that and what truth is or honesty is or one of the hardest things, like I find this as a writer too, and I didn't find it as hard as a yogi actually, is to really take on board things you don't want to hear, things that you think you've already figured out and achieved or whatever, like I remember a couple times there'd be certain pages and paragraphs happening when I was writing Waking. It's clearly happened in this last book, but like where you think you've spent so much time on it and it couldn't be, it is exactly what it's supposed to be. And then you have like Patricia, my editor, say, I don't feel like you're quite telling the truth in this paragraph. And you're like, what? You want a double barrel, right? You want to go totally telling, or she'll say, what aren't you saying in this paragraph? And one of her rules of thumb would be when something isn't quite working, um, chances are you're not telling the truth. And you're like, wait, I'm writing a freaking memoir. Like, I'm telling the truth as well as I know. And then you find out as you sit with it for a while, right? Kind of, you kind of go, oh. But discovering that you're not being open to all of it, a lot of times, especially with disability and living with like kind of an altered life, you end up for other people's sake, so you say, not really telling the truth, No, I'm great. Things are great. I blah blah. I'm doing, whatever. Or you go the other way and it turns into a bitch session, which isn't exactly true. No, anyone that just has only things to bitch about, right? It's kind of like not being open to what yoga does, right? There's a lot of things. So opening to more, having an open mind without getting ungrounded, what does it mean to receive from things you can't see, especially if you've gone through a lot, right? So sit up straight and tall. So there are just certain things, if you One of the things that, one of the things I'm about to do a whole bunch of different teaching, and so it's or sharing, and it's like, how do you open at the root of or before your mind starts to judge it all, right? And so part of that is what centering's about. You try to maybe get into the default mode network, part of your brain that just is what's there when it's just sitting there. So try to let your body be part of your happening, which is hard, especially when it's, not feeling like paradise in there, right? So you feel your sitting bones in your feet and you start to let there be structure. Because without structure, things can't rise and they truly can't drop either, right? So you kind of need to have something for the rain to come down through and then being upright. So your feet, your sitting bones. And then there's this opportunity for multiple things to be happening at once. So when you go down with the sitting bones, there's an opportunity if you're willing to open to the space between your sitting bones. And it's not a, if you try to make it too physical, it'll screw you up. But you draw up through the core as you're hitting down. And so in this space that's right around the life chakra, whatever that means, right? Just words that people put there, right? You got multiple directions going. One's going down towards the earth, down towards your feet. One's coming up through your chest. And then you lift your sternum. One of the things when you're sitting in, you have to start more from your base more. Remember, your sitting bones and your femur bones are part of your base when you're sitting more. But then you get to go up and broaden. So you're trying to go horizontal and vertical. And then hopefully you're thinking, maybe I should balance my head over my neck again, my neck over my torso. And when you do that, maybe you can let there be a silk curtain to drop from the base of your neck down to your tailbone on your back body. And that in that silkiness, you lift your sternum and broaden across your collarbone still. And you're inflating. You're taking up space. And the inhalation and the exhalation starts to form a rhythm back and forth. And with this many instructions, it's hard for the mind to stay patient, especially if something's hurting or something's not quite right. You think you need to adjust something. So anyone that needs to adjust, adjust now and then sit still. Do what you need to, in the next few moments, be still with rhythm of your breath. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Temples released, cheekbones to cheeks deflate. Sternum lifts, back body drops. Hard to stay patient, huh? If you can bring your hands together, do ground the heel of your hands, lift your sternum. Good. And then release. Nothing like when one of the reasons why the mind resists getting quiet is that you start to discover there's a layer of things that are uneven and uncomfortable, right? Lift your sternum, drop your chin. I promise you that's only one of many layers. And you're not supposed to ignore it. You're just supposed to know there's more. So if I'm lifting my sternum and dropping my chin, a whole bunch of new opportunities arise. A different kind of clarity and a different struggle and a different this and a different that. Raise your head up with closed eyes, open your eyes. Always, right? So, you know, and there are days, like when I'm having a more chronically pain day, right? Move around a little bit, of course, because a lot of you are waiting for that. Um, by the end of it, if my mind tries to be the one on the front lines of dealing with what hurts and what's not right, and all the things that are actually wrong in my body and or the world, those are rough days. Those are the rough days, right? And as you know, making more length in your and getting some space in your low back is something we do all the time. Get a couple different directions going. So again, because one of the things from sitting is clarity between or more aliveness between your femur bones and your spine. It's not that easy to get. So I'm pulling out, lengthening my hip flexors, then I'm pushing back in my knees, right? So I'm getting this kind of rhythm. So I'm getting more input, right? More input, more reference to travel through the base of my spine, right? Through the base. So right, like this and going like, oh, you know, remember, well, I don't know. I haven't done it in so long, like 47 years, but I remember when I occasionally got to, as a little kid, paddle a rowboat, but I was just barely old enough to do all that stuff by myself, right? And then you pull back on the rows and you go way back like that, right? So remember whatever image you might have of being able to go back like this and then forward, find a way that there's a rhythm here. So you're going back and forth, right? Because what we're trying to do is wake up the junction between the abdomen and the legs. And we're using the bones, pulling on the bones. I'm going to pause here and go do a couple extra like pushes to get that a littler movement. So I'm putting basically my femur bones in traction, right? So I'm kind of at the apex, then I'm going to like rock it a few times, right? And get that little bit of extra. And then I'm going to catch it in my chest. Then I'm going to make my whole body start to do it more, right? Ooh, that lights some things up. I'm gonna come forward. Now I'm gonna do it the other way. I'm gonna like find a way to turn this into a rhythm. So I'm gonna push on my knees and use that pushing back this way to come forward and change gravity, but I'm gonna come up to change gravity. So I'm gonna push in and rise and then drop. Push in to rise and then drop. Push in to rise and then drop. And then I'm gonna start doing them back and forth, right? I'm gonna get a little extra sense of movement through there, right? We're just waking stuff up now. You ever wonder what the space was? Take your legs wide. You ever wonder what the space was before you started moving into it, right? If you before you started class and you just sat there and you had this space, this potential, the space in your body that wasn't getting filled yet. Well, I'll make the point of this more in a second. So it's going back and forth, and again, now doing it with my femur bones. There's a triangle here between my tailbone and my knees, and across, right? And I'm just kind of moving back and forth, finding ways to like go, huh? Getting that little extra something to go. Damn, man, I may not move like this all week. Not take this time, right? Is anyone kind of afraid you're going to stir up some pain? If you move too much, you're going to be like, yeah, I know. Yeah, but this stuff, do it with some common sense, but this isn't dumb movement, right? This should, if this stirs some shit up, it's because some shit needs stirring. Right? This isn't like over cranking a twist, for example, right? That's dumb. So we're gonna bring this back. Let's back together. So this idea of taking wondering about the space that your body surrounds, but before you occupy the space that's here, right? And this idea of your body putting boundary around something, right? Remember the same empty space that's inside your body is the same as the empty space outside of your body, right? So there's it's like a false membrane for the empty space, right? All right. So exhale all the way. Did you before you came to yoga, did you kind of did you figure out that you maybe weren't breathing nearly as well as you could have been after you did your yoga for a while? I was like, huh. So you did, so I'm not meaning for you to hold your breath, but kind of stay on the shallow side of breathing, right? Like kind of how you did maybe before you start really thinking about your breath too much. People choose to live there without taking many deep breaths. So when they go into the doctor and the doctor's listening with the stethoscope and says, "Take a deep breath," that's a new. They don't take deep breaths like that unless they're really athletic or something. It's like, "Oh yeah, take a deep breath. I better take a deep breath." Because you just choose to live in a range like this big of a range with your breath, right? So as we're living kind of here with shallow breathing, which sometimes shallow breathing in yoga is really important, right? So it's not always wrong. But think of what's the space before the expansion? Like that space is still sitting there, right? Now start to take an inhalation and the space gets occupied differently. And then deflate again. And with the deflated breath, Why do people choose to live there? It's one of the great things about cardiovascular exercise, right? Is that it ends up making your breath go. You end up going, oh my God, I need oxygen, right? It's pushing into the space, right? So you're like thinking, and so when I'm not saying take a deep breath all the time. I'm saying there's a whole bunch of like space you're not having when you're not taking deeper breaths with some regularity. And then there's things that you can do with inside your breath. Obviously, one of the things that I emphasize a lot that I want you to get is feel the expansion of your rib cage on the inhalation, which just happens because you're breathing in, and then lengthen your spine on exhalation. So rather than a deflation on exhalation, there's an expansion on exhalation. But the energy that's expanding doesn't have breath in it the same way. What? There's expansion without breath? Yes. Yes. There's expansion that happens without breath. So you're lifting weights and you're on the bench press and you take a deep breath and you exhale and your will tends to squeeze your breath. It even tends to hold your breath and use retention as part of the breathing, right? All of these things sit up straight and tall again. So I'm occupying space. So now if I inhale, exhale, and then inhale and go back over the back of my chair, what do you do on exhaling? Stay back bended. What do you do with the exhalation? Don't waste it. Don't waste the exhalation. What do you do on exhalation? Did anyone go farther into the pose on exhalation? Fucking right. Yeah. Right. I'm going farther on my dissipation. All right. And then come forward. Hands on your thighs or on the table, right? So we're just going to lengthen the spine out, right? Wondering how to expand, if I just sit here and, don't breathe here. When I inhale, what I used to tell traditional students in dog pose was breathe for your legs. I'm going to say the same to you, breathe for your legs. How would you do that? You're going to use your frontal cortex and think into your legs and go, I'm going to breathe for my legs. Or are you going to do something else? Curious what you do. I got some suggestions. How would you breathe for your legs? Well, there's going to be a couple of junction points because your frontal cortex is pretty far from your legs, right? So you need to set some structure. So find where your sitting bones are. So the inhalation actually hits your chair seat, the bottom diaphragm. You know how when you yawn, your mouth opens kind of wide sometimes, right? So when you breathe into your sitting bones, think of it as a yawn that's opening your mouth to make it to your legs. Something's opening right there, right? And in that mouth opening, go down to your legs. And then exhale, more like Ujjayi breath if you do know, and then push down to your legs. So you get two different qualities of movement down to your legs. One on inhale, one on exhale. Good. And then release for a second. So I ask these weird questions. Which I'm curious, and you can answer it rhetorically to yourself, or you can pop in if you wanted to. Does your will like the inhalation better or the exhalation better? Which gives the will more traction? Angelique, which gives the will more traction?
I knew you were going to ask me. I feel like my exhalation, the will takes more traction in my exhalation.
Hmm.
Just thinking about it just there, especially in downward facing dog, it's like it just wants to grip, like it wants to take on more. So there's like, I know.
That'd be the will, right? That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. It's like
So there
I'm
has to
ready to
be like
rock.
a release, like I have to focus on um relaxing as I into it, even as I'm um trying to take the space. That makes sense.
You have to relax into it so you don't overuse your will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a cold?
No, I'm
Okay.
tired.
Oh, good. I like calling on you when you're tired. Um, I love that she lives in the dread he's going to call on me. Yeah. So yeah, but because there is that opportunity to kind of squeeze the pose too hard, right?
Yeah.
So again, so thanks for that. I mean, and that's the answer I would give. I have to like allow the expansion, although I can want to take a deep breath. That's a little bit of my will, but I'm going into more open space on inhalation. If I try to squeeze the open space that I'm receiving from the inhalation, it's not going to work as well. So when your hands are on the table or you're using your against your thighs, like there's a so when my hands are on the table and I inhale, oh, there's so many things to do. So on inhalation, I want you to broaden your palms. Least I want you to broaden across your collarbones right now. You're too narrow. No, that's your elbows. It's not your collarbones, right? All right. Time out. We got to do a little thing because of Lisa's pose. We're all gonna like talk about if you want to broaden your collarbones, you have to descend your shoulder blades and broaden and your neck lengthen. So a whole bunch of things start happening. And it's hard because it's not just Lisa, it's a whole bunch of you, right? Right. So you've got to get enough structure, right? So your hands are on the table or you're on your thighs, right? And it's harder if your hands are closer together. This is harder to do, right? So when you're on your knees, it's a little bit harder. But you need to be able to get enough reference to drop your shoulder blades, lift your sternum, so you can lengthen the space. So it's not like you try to lengthen the space here directly. You try to move everything around it so the collarbones broaden, right? It's not a direct action. It's a consequence. And when you do it that way, can you feel how your spine lengthens better? Can you feel what I'm talking about here, everybody? That should feed your legs. That's part of your inhalation traveling, right? All right, try it again. That's the thing about these damn asanas, man. Everything is working. Everything adds to everything. So if you really want to F up what I just said about your collarbones, instead of rotating your upper arm, and I mean like do it wrong, right? Should be like just living with shallow breath. If you instead of rolling your tricep up, the inner arm up towards the ceiling, right? Rotate it slightly down and bend your elbow. And then try to do the pose. Try to your collarbones. Feel how disjointed the pose feels. Does that just suck? Does that like taste like cod liver oil or like a mayonnaise soda to use Lou Reed? Life tastes like a mayonnaise soda, bacon and ice cream. That's what life like feels like without you. It's a song by Lou Reed, right? That's just mayonnaise, right? That's a mayonnaise soda. It's just wrong, right? Now turn it up and notice when you turn up the inner upper arm up, a lot of this thing starts to happen on across the collarbones and the shoulder blades go down, right? Which means this part of your diaphragm, your upper diaphragm goes up, right? And there's an opportunity to hit differently down through your sitting bones, correct? Which actually goes down through your legs, correct? Oh my God, it's like we're playing Operation as kids. The collarbone's connected to the toe bone, right? It literally is. Remember that game Operation, anybody? You hit the sides. It's crazy. You didn't know Operation. You missed the dumbest, most wonderful game ever. All right. All right. So all this from this going up. Forearm, index finger going down, locking the shoulder blades, descending the shoulder blades, hitting down through the sitting bones, lifting the sternum. Now, all this structure is waiting for you. Don't overwill it. It's waiting for you to inhale gracefully and make space your will didn't even know was there. And then with that space, the muscle go on the exhale. Now the muscle goes back towards the bone more gracefully. The will is like a bull in a china shop. It tries too fast, too quick. Is this too much on dog pose for you? I could go all day. We've just started. All right. Come on back to neutral. Now I'm all getting all hot and like this is such deep work for me right now. I'm getting that deep kind of heat coming. Right? So it's like, okay, I must be doing something. So I'm going to sit here for a second, come back to a little bit of neutral. Remember, we started with where are the layers in your body that don't just bring your mind its dysfunction and its pain? Anyone feel the kind of hum stuff happening in your body? Does that hum actually hurt? Mm-mm. Nope, nope, nope. And do you know how many people don't know how to access the hum part that precedes the story that grips the mind? They miss paradise, right? All right, dog pose again. All this stuff. And all we're doing, because of Lisa's pose, we're caught on the upper part of the diaphragm of the three diaphragms, and we're all getting better because of it, right? So you're doing all these things, and you start to go, oh my God, when he says upper arm towards the ceiling, press the index side of the thumb side down. That was to get the grounding of the shoulder blades, broadening across the collarbones, hitting down through the sacrum, hitting down through the sitting bones, feeling that, feeling the line from the inner groin to the inner knee to the inner heel, and then adding your breath, space. That'd be like Pat's looking up to getting ready for book club, exhaling and coming back to the bone more intelligently. Good. And then release. So all this precise stuff, right, kind of takes the joy out of things. you kind of go, oh. So let's go back to some of these rhythms because my class gets impatient. I can see it on their faces. They think, oh, don't keep me in a closet. Don't keep me in the closet for God's sakes. Let me out. Let me out. So we'll do some of this back and forth stuff. Do some of your whatever you think you need to just know we're indulging your mind to be in control. Mine too. That's why I do it. Right. But I'm going to go back to some of those initial rhythms because I want to think that there's a sequence happening in this class. Right. So remember the one where I push away and then I come back, right? And I push away and I catch it with my chest and I get a little and I pull my knees back or pull my femur bones back. So by the deliverer of my femur bone, I'm changing gravity, but I'm trying to find a rhythm between my spine and my legs because there's a rhythm that if you sit a lot, it deadens way too much, right? And believe me, without this part of your base, your breath will be shallower through the rest of the week, right? You need to visit stuff and wake things up. And then we're going to take the legs wide again because we're getting back to the wait, after all that precision, I need to keep a mind that isn't forced into where the breathing is too dense. Yeah, right. Because it's just Monday. And then back again, right? Finding that rhythm, back and forth, waking it up, knowing that we could change and go to standing poses quick if you wanted, right? But I don't want to. We're just visiting to let you know how everything lingers right around the periphery of everything. Any yoga practice has the same kind of main rivers, right? And they could go all sorts of ways. We could go towards twisting, right? It's all right here, right? Right. So when you worry that we're getting too focused on dog pose, don't forget all the poses are waiting for you. They're all just like kind of whispering, right? So don't worry about getting into a couple of them. All right, downward facing dog again. So this time look down. So one of the things, so I like the transformation. Okay, so we're gonna do something kind of funny. Um, that's not funny. So in sun salutation, you're in plank, you come down towards the ground, you come into chaturanga, and then you go into up dog, right? And you kind of go up, right? So there's this transition between being parallel to the ground and then you go up, right? So we're gonna try to get, and one of the things that I learned this like teaching a guy with Chris Becker who does have pretty severe cerebral palsy, and he would show our teacher trainees the difference between up dog and chaturanga, but he could barely move the difference. It wasn't on the outside, but you could totally see the thing go right. And it doesn't have to be a big movement. It can be a little movement, right? So we're going to come into what we were talking downward facing dog, and we're going to look down, but we're really going to lengthen. So it's kind of like, you know, to go to an old thing, if you trained with me before, I used to say the Superman pose, like you think about Superman leading one way and flying in a horizontal line. But Superman only gets elevation if he's also almost equally moving back through his feet, right? There's no way if you just go one direction. If Superman, when he was flying, only went one direction, he'd stay on the ground, right? I mean, the thing about a plane, it has to have the resistance of the flap to get it airborne, right? So if you move just in one direction, you're not rising. This is really true in dog pose here, right? When you wanted to make a chaturanga, when you're in a chair, right? So all this emphasis on hitting down through the sitting bones, right, is actually part of what's going to rise you up a little bit, right? So hit down through the sitting bones, place your hands on the table, whatever you're doing, right? But make sure you're trying to remember whoever's flying, whether it's Superman or whatever, has to have a little bit extra going forward than going back, but they have to be in constant something. Otherwise, they'd go straight up. Notice there are very few, they just figured out how to make a plane that goes straight up and down like a helicopter, right? In the last like 30 years, because it's really hard to do. To go, so you want to have it go tipping so it can go forward. So hitting down through your sitting bones, right? Stretching out through the top of your head, but only stretch out to the top of your head if it's counterbalanced by hitting down through your sitting bones. And then broaden across the collarbones and drop the shoulder blades to deepen the engine, to like downshift into strength. And breathe and keep looking down. I'm trying to get you the feeling of laying flat on your stomach in Chaturanga Dandasana, just kind of like a push up. So you're really trying to be long. Good. And then release. So I'm curious, when you tried to lengthen and be really strong there and hit down through your sitting bones, did anyone feel the, let's call it the backwash of the pose, fill the legs, right? Like you don't even have to try, just kind of, there's like that seeping. Yeah. Yeah. Just let that be true, right? Okay. So what we're going to do is take Chaturanga Dandasana and we're going to lift the sternum into upward facing dog. But I want you to get that it's the lift that changes the universe of your sternum. Like, so it's like, it's not a little thing, it's a whole change. You're trying to be Superman flying in a straight line. And then you go, wait, I'm going to be Pat going into book club. I'm going to open up and the whole thing's going to change if you pay attention. All right, so let's get into it. So I'm going to like keep you in a smaller room a little bit, come back into the pose, down facing dog, look down, get the stuff working, right? Shoulder blades down, broaden across the collarbones, right? Now really hit down to your sitting bones and lengthen through the top of your head. Feel the underside of your arms. Make the pose light up, right? But keep that down now. Start to, from your sternum, really strongly, like you're going through 2,000 pounds of gravity. Lift your sternum up and then your gaze. Drop the shoulder blades. Breathe. Good. And then release. What was I able to get there? Did you get the intensity of the change there? Do we need to do it again? We'll do it again. Right. I want you like you're looking for, yeah, when you make a little change, when there's a lot of heavy gravity in the pose, it's like a, all right, try it again. By the way, I came farther into the pose on exhalation. What did you do? I took an inhalation. I focused my awareness on exhalation. Did it again. Now on this next one, I'm really gonna hit my sitting bones down, stretch out the top of my head. Now I'm gonna, on the next inhalation, on the exhalation, no, on the next inhalation, I'm gonna look up from my sternum, change everything, drop the shoulder blades down, hold everything up. Feel the color change in your legs. Good, and then release. Come on down. Is there any effort happening in these poses for you? I'm hoping. Is it being hard? Yeah, yeah. Hmm. I don't think we should do it again because I think that we've been working kind of hard here. It's my take on it, right? But I also don't want to go too fast to the jiggle. See, some of you are going to the jiggle already. Like, wait, wait. No, no. Move in smaller rhythm. So I'm going to take this buzz that happened from that. I'm going to go into a smaller rhythm, right? So, like, I got my forearms here, sternum lifting, and I'm going to go back and forth. So, I'm trying to be in a smaller place of movement, one that actually gets my spine a little more engaged. I'm going to come forward onto my table and drop my right arm. Right. And I've been really liking referencing my frontal cortex, but you know, only if it doesn't make you feel right. And I'm going to lengthen. We did this whole class before. So I've got this arm long and I've got my other hand on my knee for balance, right? And I'm going to take some time to make this yoga. So I'm going to drop my right shoulder blade, lengthen my tricep towards my elbow, right? And as soon as I do that, does anyone push harder with their left hand onto your left leg? See how they go together? When you get the upper body starting to activate, right? And then start to turn into a twist. This would be more like a deeper twist. But I'm not cranking it. I'm trying to have it be powerful without too much will. You know what I keep losing is the underside of my armpit to my elbow. So I'm going to keep anchoring my shoulder blade and lengthening my tricep. Now I'm going to lift under my collarbones. Ooh, my goodness. That changed everything, made me even spasm. Good. And then I'm going to slowly uncoil out of it. That just turned my spine into Rice Krispies. As I came out of it, snap, crackle, and pop. Right? So something happened there. Something happened there. And it may not happen on the other side. So I'm going to sit in the midline here. Come down. So I do all these tricks that they're not tricks, they're just because I've done a lot of yoga. I made sure I had a really good exhalation here, right? As soon as I came down. So I could get my shoulder blades down, my collarbones activated, right? Then I'm going frontal cortex. Oh man, I'm cheating on this side. Holy cow. I could be really bummed out by how different one side is to the other. No, no, I'm gonna go for the hum. So I'm going to drop my left shoulder blade, lengthen from the armpit to the elbow, lift my sternum. As I do that, the pressure on my right hand to my right femur bone gets deeper. I'm going to start to inhale, not a big one, exhale, and start to turn, turn. Ooh, there are different places I need to work on this side because of my scoliosis. Figure out the best way for you to rotate here. Use your breath to make space and then wring it out through your spine. And then uncoil. I didn't get the snap, crackle, pop on this side. I could be disappointed, but different sides, different universes, right? Come back into center. Practicing symmetry, ready for Shavasana a slightly different way. So now I've got my elbows on the table, could be on your thighs. I'm leaning forward. Ooh, I can tell that I got way more weight on one elbow. I don't know why. So I'm adjusting into more symmetry. No, that's to do with my scoliosis, but so I'm being a yogi. I'm making sure I drop each shoulder blade equally, lift under the sternum again. I'm just preparing symmetry for Shavasana. All the while, my hands are on my forehead, so I'm taking an edge off the judgment. If instead of collapsing into my elbows, if I slightly lengthen my tricep, anchor my shoulders, lengthen my tricep, I feel my legs more. I'm going to want that in Shavasana. Now, from this grounding, I'm going to come back up, reposition, but try to keep that same feeling and find a way to be more open here. And before I go into Shavasana all the way, I'm going to do a little bit of like a back bend to make sure I don't miss the sky in Shavasana today. So I'm doing that, and then I'm going to come into neutral. Place my hands in a way, for me, that means slightly folded, thumbs together, slightly the fingertips, because I need the sensitivity. I'm going to have the sensitivity of my fingertips touching, help me soften the jaw on the inside of my mouth. I'm going to use that to help me balance my neck on my head on my torso. Release the temples, the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Let in the support of the chair. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Learning to trust the hum, that the hum happens deeper than your ails. When you're ready, open your eyes. Let that be true. Close them again if you need to. That's a big truth because your ails seem like they're awfully like deep a lot of the times. Hmm. I like that. See, I like that the potential of experience. A lot of people use that kind of funny. They like say, "Oh, in 1,000 years, who's going to care?" Right? Or they use the expanse as a way to distract or to belittle, right? And so I hope you get that when you get to the thing that's before, you're not changing the thing that's happening. You're not trying to water it down. You're trying to know there's more, right? And all the different frames are true. And it's liberating. It's liberating. All right. I hope you have a great weekend.